Elena Voss stepped onto the witness stand, her heart slamming against her ribs like a caged beast desperate to break free. The courtroom crackled with raw electricity. Jurors perched on the edge of their seats, reporters' pens scratching like frantic claws. And, in the defense seat, her ex-husband, Marcus Hale, fixed her with a venomous glare, his once arrogant facade crumbling into a storm of fury and fear. This was it, the explosive climax of 8 agonizing years, where her buried sacrifices would erupt like a volcano, scorching everything in their path. The prosecutor nodded sharply, her voice slicing through the suffocating silence. "Miss Voss, describe your role at Hale Steel." Elena's eyes bored into Marcus, unflinching, as memories flooded her, nights of relentless toil, his mocking laughter echoing in her mind. "I was the phantom savior, the unseen warrior who dragged that company from the abyss. 8 years of blood and brilliance, supply chains I forged anew, markets I conquered, while Marcus strutted like a king, stealing my triumphs and bleeding millions dry in his greed-fueled shadows." A wave of shocked gasps crashed through the gallery, chairs creaking as bodies shifted in disbelief. Marcus bolted upright, veins bulging, his lawyer scrambling to his feet with a predatory smirk. "Objection! This is a venomous fabrication from a woman scorned, Your Honor, a calculated vendetta." Vendetta? The word ignited Elena like a match to gasoline, flames of rage licking at the edges of her composure. She remembered it all, walking in on his betrayal, his cold indifference that nearly shattered her soul, the gaslighting that twisted her reality into knots. Leaning forward, her voice thundered with unbridled power. "Not vendetta, Armageddon for your lies. You didn't just pilfer my ideas, you gutted families' futures, Marcus. Fake vendors, shell companies, extravagant trips on company funds, $4.5 million gone while I pieced together the wreckage you left." The jury's eyes widened in horror, whispers exploding into a frenzy. On the screen, Theodore Hale's ghostly video testament flickered to life, his dying voice a haunting decree. Elena earned it all. Marcus lunged forward, roaring, "Lies. He was poisoned against me." But Elena stood unbreakable, her silence a deafening roar that drowned his chaos. In that infernal arena, truth wasn't just revealed, it detonated, reducing his empire to ashes and crowning her the unyielding queen of her fate. The attorney's office reeked of polished wood and suppressed secrets, a heavy scent that clung to the air like unspoken regrets. Elena Voss lingered just outside the heavy oak door, her palm pressed firmly against the cool brass knob, her ear attuned to the muffled voices drifting from within. Marcus Hale's arrogant chuckle pierced the barrier, a sharp, entitled bark that once made her flinch in submission, but now only ignited a quiet fire of resolve deep in her chest. She smoothed the front of her crimson blazer, chosen with deliberate precision for its bold hue, a symbol of the battle she was about to wage. With a steady breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room fell into an abrupt, icy silence. All eyes turned to her, a mix of shock, disdain, and curiosity hanging thick in the atmosphere. Marcus lounged at the head of the long mahogany table, exuding the casual confidence of a man who believed the world was his inheritance. Flanked by his mistress Brooke, whose platinum locks cascaded over her shoulders in contrived waves, her feigned grief clashing absurdly with the somber black dress she wore, as if auditioning for a role in a tragedy. Brooke's acrylic nails tapped nervously on the table, her eyes darting around with the false sympathy of someone who had no real stake in the morning. Across the table, Lydia Hale, Marcus's sister, occupied her seat with a permanent sneer, her jewelry clinking like tiny accusations as she leaned forward. Diamonds glittered on her fingers and neck, symbols of the family wealth she guarded like a dragon its hoard. In the shadowed corner sat Miriam Hale, Marcus's mother, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her posture fragile and eyes distant, as if she were observing the scene from a great remove, burdened by years of quiet complicity. "You have got to be kidding me," Marcus spat, his voice dripping with contempt as he locked eyes with Elena. "Nobody invited you here. This is a family matter." Elias Grant, the attorney, adjusted his silver-rimmed glasses, his older face etched with the lines of someone who had witnessed too many such dramas. "Ms. Voss is required to be present for this reading," Mr. Hale said quietly, his tone professional, yet firm. Lydia leaned forward aggressively, her jewelry clinking louder. "Required? This is outrageous. She stopped being family the moment she walked out on my brother." Elena moved gracefully to the empty chair at the far end of the table, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor with each step, a declaration of her presence. She said nothing at first, having learned long ago that silence could be the most potent weapon in a room full of noise. The air felt charged, heavy with the weight of unspoken histories and simmering resentments. She could feel Marcus's gaze boring into her, but she met it calmly, her expression unreadable. "I walked out." Elena finally spoke, her voice so calm it could have frozen the room. "Is that the narrative we are sticking with now?" Marcus's jaw tightened visibly, his face flushing with barely contained anger. "We are not rehashing this here, Howard. Just get on with it. We already divided everything. The properties, the accounts, the shares. My father's estate has been settled among the actual family members. She was not included for a reason." Brooke reached over and squeezed Marcus's hand, her nails digging in like little daggers, her voice a saccharine whisper. "This must be so hard for you, baby." Elena watched the display with a detached fascination, noting how Brooke, once the ambitious secretary, had transitioned seamlessly into the role of mistress. She wondered idly if the young woman realized yet that this position was merely an audition for being the next discarded partner, tossed aside when something shinier came along. The performance was almost theatrical, but Elena had seen it all before. Elias adjusted his glasses again, a subtle tell that Elena recognized from previous meetings, a sign that something pivotal was about to unfold. "Mr. Hale, I'm afraid there has been a misunderstanding regarding your father's final wishes." "What misunderstanding?" Marcus demanded, his voice rising an octave, laced with the entitlement of someone unused to being contradicted. "Those were preliminary discussions," Elias explained carefully, his words measured. "Your father made significant changes to his will several times before his passing. The final version, signed and notarized, supersedes all previous arrangements." Lydia's eyes narrowed to slits, her voice sharp. "What kind of changes?" Elias opened a thick leather folder, extracting a crisp document and sliding it across the polished table toward Marcus. "Everything has been left to a single beneficiary." The room plunged into a profound silence, so absolute that Elena could hear the faint tick of a wall clock and the distant hum of traffic outside. Her own heartbeat echoed in her ears, steady and strong. Marcus snatched the document, his eyes scanning the pages rapidly, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, then exploding into raw rage. "This is fake," he declared flatly, slamming the paper down. "This has to be a forgery. My father would never do this." The will was witnessed by 3 independent attorneys, accompanied by a full psychiatric evaluation confirming your father's complete mental competency, and recorded on video with a verbal declaration of his intentions, Elias replied, his voice remaining even, though Elena detected a hint of quiet satisfaction beneath the professionalism. "Everything is legally sound and beyond contestation." "Who?" Marcus's voice cracked, breaking the veneer of control. "Who gets everything?" Elias turned his gaze directly to Elena for the first time, his eyes steady. "Ms. Elena Voss is the sole beneficiary of the entire Hale estate, comprising the company, all properties, all financial assets, and the complete portfolio, everything." The eruption was instantaneous and volcanic. Marcus lunged across the table, papers scattering like confetti in a storm, his face contorted in fury. "You manipulated him. You twisted a dying older man's mind." "Sit down, Mr. Hale," Elias commanded sharply, his authority cutting through the chaos. "Or I will have security escort you out." Lydia sprang to her feet, her voice shrill and piercing. "This is fraud. We will sue. We will fight this in every court in the country." Brooke burst into tears, though Elena noted they were suspiciously dry, her performance more theatrical than genuine. How could you do this to him? He loved his father so much. Only Miriam remained seated and silent, her hands still folded, her expression inscrutable, as if she were processing a truth long suspected but never voiced. Elena sat perfectly still amid the turmoil, her face a mask of composure, her breathing even and controlled. She had anticipated this storm for months, rehearsed it in her mind during sleepless nights. Now, it unfolded like a dream, surreal and distant. "Let me see those evaluations," Marcus snarled, snatching more papers from Elias's hands. He read them frantically, his face mottling with ugly red patches. "This says he was of sound mind. It says he made these changes willingly. There's a recording. Your father wanted no doubt about his intentions," Elias confirmed. "Would you like to watch it?" "Yes," Lydia snapped, her voice laced with desperation. "Play it right now." Elias set up a small projector screen and pressed the play button. The image of Theodore Hale filled the room. His face was thin and tired from illness, but his eyes were sharp and resolute, his voice steady despite his frailty. "If you are watching this, I am gone, and my son is probably throwing a tantrum," Theodore said from the screen, and Elena saw Marcus flinch as if struck. "Marcus, you are my blood, but you are also the biggest disappointment of my life. You never worked for anything. You took credit for others' efforts. You married a brilliant woman and treated her like a piece of furniture." "Dad," Marcus whispered hoarsely, as if the recording could hear his plea. "Everything you think you accomplished, Elena did it. Every deal, every strategy, every decision that pulled our company from the brink, that was her. She worked for me in secret because she loved the challenge, not the money. She never asked for a thing. She just built, created, saved us all while you golfed and chased skirts half your age." Brooke made a slight, wounded sound, her facade cracking. Lydia looked ready to shatter something valuable. "So, I am leaving her everything." Theodore continued, his tone unwavering, "because she had earned it, because she deserves it, because I want my son to learn what it feels like to lose it all while someone else rightfully claims the credit." Theodore's face softened slightly as he addressed the camera. "Elena, if you are watching this, thank you. You saved my legacy. Use it wisely." The screen went dark, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. Marcus's hands trembled, his world unraveling thread by thread. He was sick. He was not thinking clearly. "You must have—" 3 separate doctors conducted the psychiatric evaluations, Elias interrupted firmly. All confirmed his mental acuity was exceptional. He knew precisely what he was doing. "There has to be a way to contest this," Lydia said desperately, her voice cracking. "Mental duress, undue influence, something." "You can try," Elias replied mildly. "However, contesting requires substantial legal fees, and according to this document, none of you has access to the Hale fortune to fund such efforts." Elena finally spoke, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. "You can stop the theatrics now, all of you." Every eye turned to her, the room hanging in the balance of her next breath. "You knew for months I was attending this reading. Elias sent the notices. You knew I would be here, and yet you staged this little show. The smug certainty, the outrage. Very dramatic." "You're manipulative," Marcus started, his voice a growl, but Elena cut him off with a look that could etch glass. "I manipulated no one, Marcus. For 8 years of our marriage, I worked tirelessly while you smiled for cameras and shook hands at galas. I crafted strategies that averted bankruptcy. I spent nights drafting proposals you presented as your genius. I corrected your mistakes, concealed your shortcomings, and made you appear brilliant to the world." Her voice remained level, but the temperature in the room seemed to plummet. "Your father knew. He observed it all and made his choice." Brooke, desperate to insert herself, trembled as she spoke. "But we are practically family now. Marcus and I are building a life. Does that not count?" Elena turned her withering gaze on the younger woman, who shrank back. "Family requires commitment, not a trail of hotel receipts. Lydia gasped. Marcus went rigid. Even Elias coughed to mask what might have been amusement. "The reading is complete," Elias announced, gathering his papers efficiently. "Ms. Voss, we will need to schedule meetings for asset transfers. The estate is complex." Elena stood, smoothing her blazer with calm precision. "I am available whenever you need me, Elias. Clear your afternoon. We have much to discuss." She walked to the door, her hand on the knob, when Marcus's voice halted her. "You will never get away with this." Elena glanced back over her shoulder. Marcus stood there, stripped of his polish, just a man realizing he had no safety net left. No fortune, no family legacy, no brilliant wife to salvage his messes. "I already have," Elena said. And with that, she stepped into the hallway, closing the door on 8 years of invisibility. Behind her, the shouting resumed, but it was distant now, irrelevant. Elena walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and as the doors slid open, she allowed herself one small, private smile. The real work was about to begin, but for the first time, it would be on her terms, for her future. The morning light filtered through the blinds of Elias Grant's office, casting long shadows across the cluttered desk piled high with legal documents and folders. Elena Voss sat across from him, her posture straight and composed, though, inside, she felt a whirlwind of emotions stirring. The events of the previous day still echoed in her mind, the chaos of the will reading replaying like a vivid dream. She had barely slept, her thoughts racing through the implications of Theodore Hales's final act of trust. Now, in the quiet sanctuary of the attorney's office, she was ready to delve deeper into the complexities of her unexpected inheritance. Elias leaned back in his leather chair, his silver hair catching the light as he adjusted his glasses once more. "Elena," he began, his voice steady and reassuring, "your father-in-law was a meticulous man, but even he could not document everything perfectly. He tried, but his health was failing faster than anticipated. Some records are incomplete, particularly those concerning Marcus's embezzlement. There are gaps in the evidence trail that he intended to fill, but ran out of time for." Elena nodded, her mind already piecing together the puzzle. She had suspected as much. Theodore had always been thorough, but his illness had been a relentless thief, stealing his strength day by day. "What does that mean for us?" she asked, her tone measured, though a flicker of determination burned in her eyes. "It means we have enough to establish your role as his consultant and to validate the will," Elias explained, pulling out a stack of papers from a drawer. "But prosecuting Marcus for theft will require more. Theodore suspected his son was siphoning funds, but he passed before gathering airtight proof. You will need to spearhead that effort yourself. Audits, forensic accounting, perhaps even private investigators to trace the money trails." A cold resolve settled in Elena's stomach. She was no stranger to hard work, to building something from fragments. If Theodore had left her a starting point rather than a finished weapon, then so be it. It felt more authentic this way, more aligned with the self-reliance she had cultivated over the years. "Tell me about the consulting work," Elias prompted gently, sensing her introspection. "When did Theodore first approach you?" Elena leaned back slightly, allowing the memories to surface. "It was 2 years into my marriage. We were at a company dinner, and Marcus was presenting on international expansion. He was using my research, my contacts, my entire framework, but he mangled the details, mixing up countries, confusing regulations, promising impossibilities. I was seated next to Theodore, and he leaned over, whispering, 'That is your work.' I nearly choked on my wine." Elias made notes on a legal pad, his pen scratching softly. "And what did you say?" "Nothing at first. What could I say?" But he knew. The following week, he invited me for coffee, saying it was a confidential matter. I thought I was in trouble, perhaps being accused of overstepping. Instead, he offered me a job. "The consulting contract," Elias nodded, referencing a file. He explained that the company was struggling under Marcus's poor decisions and lack of execution. He needed someone competent but discreet. Marcus' ego could not handle being overshadowed. Elena traced the edge of a document with her finger, the paper cool and smooth under her touch. "Theodore paid me fairly for every hour. not as Marcus's wife doing a favor, but as a professional with valued expertise. And I did more than save Hale Steel. I transformed it, restructured supply chains, renegotiated contracts, and opened new channels. For 3 years, I essentially ran the company while Marcus believed he was the visionary leader. Elias pulled another thicker file, flipping through pages of notes and emails. Theodore kept records of your contributions, including meeting transcripts, strategy outlines, and his handwritten observations. It is not exhaustive, as some sessions were not recorded, relying solely on his notes. But it establishes you as the architect of the turnaround. Why the gaps? Elena asked, though she suspected the answer. His heart was failing rapidly, Elias said softly, his voice tinged with regret. He prioritized the will revisions, the video, the evaluations, to ensure you received what you earned. Documenting Marcus's crimes came second. He started but was unable to finish. A wave of unexpected grief washed over Elena. Theodore had been more than an employer. He had been a mentor, a quiet ally in a marriage that often felt like a battlefield. He had seen her potential when Marcus had dismissed it, had trusted her with his life's work. Now, she would honor that trust by completing what he could not. Stan tried to explain your strategy back to you at dinner once, didn't he? Elias asked, a hint of amusement creeping into his tone. Elena laughed, a genuine sound that surprised her in the somber atmosphere of the office. Oh yes, at a fundraiser with industry leaders. Someone asked about the expansion Marcus supposedly masterminded. He bungled the explanation. Wrong markets, muddled timelines, turning brilliance into a fluke. I smiled and nodded, then excused myself to call Theodore with corrections before damage spread. Elias chuckled. Theodore told me that story. It was the moment he realized you deserved everything, and Marcus needed to learn the sting of failure. I am not vengeful, Elias. I did not want Marcus to suffer. I just wanted him to stop claiming my life as his trophy, and now he will. Elias gathered the documents, his movements precise and deliberate. However, a warning. Marcus has been stealing for years. Theodore's evidence is fragmentary. Pursuing charges means entirely conducting thorough audits, reviewing records and building from scratch. It will not be easy. Good, Elena replied firmly. If I am doing this, I want it right, not handed to me but fought for. Walking out, Elena felt the weight of the inheritance, not just assets, but responsibility. Theodore's life's work was entrusted to her, believing she could carry it out. But he had not paved the path perfectly. He left tools, trusting her to forge ahead. Flashbacks intruded as she drove home. A childhood in foster care, hunger at 13, locked fridges, and an ignored existence. Invisibility as survival. Community college on overnight shifts, gas stations, diners, office cleaning. Sleeping for 4 hours, studying in stalls. Graduating with honors, I received a scholarship to attend an ivy-covered institution where privilege abounded. Marcus was at a networking event, charming in an expensive cologne, declaring her the most interesting person in the room. At 26, exhausted and yearning for validation, she believed him. Marriage came fast, security illusory. Now, those illusions shattered, she saw clearly. At home, Mira called, her voice bubbly. You absolute icon. Saw the news. Marcus's face must have been epic. Satisfying, Elena admitted, sipping coffee, watching city lights. He's facing consequences for once. Press charges for embezzlement, audit ordered. Evidence goes to the authorities, no clean walk for him. Make him pay for every theft. They talked for an hour. Mira's support grounded them. Elena scheduled department meetings to understand Hale Steel from the ground up, rather than relying on suggestions, but as an accountable CEO. First with Sylvia Torres, manufacturing head, a veteran of decades. Sylvia entered, eyeing the new nameplate. So it is true, Theodore left you everything. He did. Good. Sylvia smiled, relief evident. Marcus could not organize lunch without aid. Watching him claim competent work was exhausting. Echoed in meetings, staff knew Marcus coasted on stolen intellect, just not whose. Did you create sustainability? The environmental head asked. Marcus contradicted goals, but the docs were brilliant. I wrote them, Elena confirmed. He suggested paying fines for non-compliance. Cheaper, he said. Disgusted expressions. Elena restructured, promoted deserving individuals, and implemented long-planned changes. Work is exhilarating, yet exhausting, utilizing the whole extent of one's intellect without reservation. Marcus unraveled publicly, escorted while yelling, and the video went viral. Entertaining to see the entitled meltdown. Audit deepened. Douglas reported escalating numbers, nearly 5 million over the years. Elena felt rage solidify. Not just credit theft, stealing from employees, legacies. Compile all, she ordered. Every transaction, contract, and expense. To the district attorney. This destroys him. Prison. He destroyed himself. We protect others, but Marcus persisted, bypassing security to her floor, shouting her name. Commotion drew her out. Security struggled. Elena, Marcus pleaded, wild-eyed. Stop this. I am sorry for Brooke. Credit. Make it go away. I cannot survive prison. Elena felt nothing. No pity, satisfaction, just void. Marcus, crimes committed, consequences yours. But we've been married for 8 years. That means something. Meant everything once. Then I found you with Brooke in our bed. Remember? Not guilty, just annoyed. I interrupted. Guards paused. You asked why you're home early. Like that? The issue, not betrayal. Mercy for remorse showers. You show entitlement. Remove him and add him to the banned list. Marcus shouted as dragged away, but Elena closed her door, shaking yet resolute. Phone buzzed. Mira saw video. Queen. Douglas, the board thanks protecting the company. Theodore proud. Elena whispered to the empty office, I hope I am doing right. You left the foundation, trusted me to finish. Work answered. Projects, decisions, problems only she solved. She dove in, letting doubt drown. Fortress against Marcus's consequences, built to endure. The Hale Steel boardroom hummed with an undercurrent of anticipation, the air thick with the scent of fresh coffee and polished mahogany. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting sharp shadows across the long conference table where the company's directors gathered for the emergency meeting Elena Voss had summoned. Whispers rippled among them as they took their seats, curiosity etched on their faces. No one knew exactly what to expect, but rumors had been swirling since Theodore Hale's death. Whispers of a contested will, family infighting, and now this unexpected call from the ex-wife who had vanished from the public eye after the divorce. Elena entered the room with purposeful strides, her presence commanding immediate attention. She wore a tailored navy suit that accentuated her poised demeanor, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun that spoke of efficiency and control. The directors fell silent as she made her way to the head of the table, the chair that had once belonged to Theodore himself. It felt both daunting and profoundly right, a symbol of the legacy she had quietly built. She connected her laptop to the projector, her movements deliberate as she ignored the subtle glances exchanged around the room. Marcus arrived last, sauntering in with his trademark smug grin, dressed in a crisp designer suit as if this were just another routine gathering. He did not even glance at Elena as he claimed his usual seat, assuming, as always, that the world revolved around him. The board members shifted uncomfortably, sensing the brewing storm. Elena waited until everyone was settled before beginning, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she said, her eyes sweeping the room. "I am sure you are aware by now that Theodore Hales will name me as the sole beneficiary of his estate, including the majority ownership of Hale Steel." Marcus's head snapped toward her, his smug expression fracturing into confusion as he registered her position at the head of the table. His eyes narrowed, a flush creeping up his neck. What the hell is this? As the new majority shareholder and owner, I'm assuming the position of Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately, Elena continued, undeterred. This transition will be smooth. Ongoing projects will proceed without interruption, and no positions are at risk, except where performance or ethics demand review. Douglas Perrin, the chief financial officer, leaned forward, his kind eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and intrigue. He was an older man with a reputation for unflinching honesty. Ms. Voss, with all due respect, many of us are unfamiliar with your qualifications for this role. Of course, Elena replied smoothly, clicking to her first slide. A timeline appeared on the screen, detailing key company milestones. For the past 8 years, I have served as a private strategic consultant to Theodore Hale. Every major decision made by this company during that period stemmed from our collaboration. She advanced through the slides, each one a revelation. Charts showing revenue spikes, market expansions, and cost-saving initiatives. Gasps echoed as directors recognized the strategies they had long attributed to Marcus. The supply chain restructuring that saved millions, that was mine. The push into Asian markets, mine. The sustainability programs that boosted our image and bottom line, also mine. Elena paused, letting the information sink in, her gaze steady. Theodore documented everything he could. Strategy sessions, late-night consultations, crises I helped navigate. I did this work not for acclaim, but because I believed in it. Marcus's face had drained of color, shifting from confusion to pale horror. That is impossible. Those were my initiatives. I presented them to this very board. You presented my plans, Elena corrected calmly, her voice like velvet over steel. Plans I developed and shared with Theodore, who then observed as you claimed them as your own. The board can review the time-stamped documentation if there is any doubt. Douglas nodded slowly, a dawning realization in his expression. That actually explains a lot. Marcus, you have always been eloquent on paper, but vague when pressed on details. This is ridiculous, Marcus sputtered, his voice rising. I have run daily operations for years. Elena clicked to another slide. Attendance logs, work hours, performance metrics. Your average week over the past 2 years. About 15 hours. Mostly in meetings you abandoned early or extended lunches. Your assistant handled most actual duties, which is why I have promoted her to department head with a substantial raise. The room fell silent except for Marcus's heavy breathing, the weight of evidence pressing down like an invisible force. This is a coup, he said finally, his voice trembling with rage. You are manipulating facts to exaggerate your accomplishments. I am stating facts, Elena replied evenly, facts you would recognize if you had ever done the work you claimed. Patricia Sullivan, another board member, spoke up thoughtfully. I recall the international expansion pitch. Marcus, you claimed months of research, but when I asked about import restrictions, you could not answer. I had a lot on my mind that day, Marcus protested weakly, his confidence eroding. You didn't know because you didn't do the research, Patricia pressed. Now we know who did. Douglas cleared his throat. Miss Voss, what are your plans for the future? Elena closed her presentation and met each director's eyes in turn, focusing on growth, sustainability, and ethical operations. I envision Hale Steel to be renowned not just for its products, but also for its employee treatment, community impact, and environmental stewardship. I have been developing expansion strategies for months. With your support, we can bring Theodore's vision to life. You have mine, Douglas said promptly. Nods and affirmations followed from others. Marcus's support was crumbling like sand in a rising tide. One more item, Elena added quietly. I have initiated a comprehensive financial audit of all accounts. Theodore suspected irregularities, but died before a full investigation. I intend to complete it. Marcus froze, his face ashen. The audit will take weeks, Elena continued. Any fraudulent activity discovered will be subject to consequences, including prosecution and legal action. You cannot do this, Marcus whispered, his voice stripped of power. You cannot destroy me. I am not destroying you, Elena said. I am safeguarding this company and its people. She stood, ending the meeting. Your employment is terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to collect personal items under supervision. Marcus surged to his feet, chair crashing backward. My father built this. You are nothing but a gold-digging. Your father built it, and I saved it from your path to ruin. Elena interrupted, her tone cold as an Arctic wind. 8 years of proof back every word. Leave with dignity or not. Marcus's mouth worked soundlessly, defeated. He stormed out, slamming the door and rattling the windows. Stunned silence lingered. Well, Douglas said finally, a smile tugging his lips, that was overdue by about 8 years. Patricia laughed, easing tension. Theodore often said his son needed a hard lesson. Today, I delivered it. Elena sank into her chair, adrenaline fading, leaving quiet triumph. She had claimed her work, her worth, stepping from shadows. Later, her phone buzzed, Brooke's Instagram story, tearful self-care focus, subtly dumping Marcus upon realizing his ruin. Elena almost laughed. Brooke had jumped ship the moment the fortune vanished. Her assistant knocked. Ms. Voss, Marcus's mother, is here. Elena's stomach tightened, but she nodded. Send her in. Miriam entered, smaller than remembered, shoulders bowed. Tears streaked her cheeks. I am sorry, she whispered, for everything. Please sit, Elena said gently. They sat in silence before Miriam spoke. Theodore told me about the will, about your company contributions, how you held us together. I supported it fully. You did? Elena asked, surprised. I watched my son diminish you, take your light as his. I watched you shrink while he expanded. I should have spoken, protected you. I did not, and I regret it forever. Elena's eyes burned. It was not your duty to fix him. Perhaps not, but to be kind to the woman saving our legacy, yes. You were more daughter than Lydia ever was, though I was too cowardly to say it. Miriam took Elena's hand. Theodore saw your worth, so did I. I wish I had told you sooner. They talked another hour, Elena feeling a knot loosen. Not all hails were toxic. Miriam proved kindness could endure. As the sun set, Elena stood at her window, city lights twinkling. Somewhere Marcus grappled with the collapse of borrowed life. Brooke hunted new prey. Lydia plotted pettily. But here, in her named office, Elena built authentically, untouchable by past ghosts. Weeks had passed since Elena Voss assumed control of Hale Steel, and the comprehensive audit she had ordered was yielding its first damning fruits. The atmosphere in her office was tense, the air heavy with the scent of fresh printouts and brewing coffee. Douglas Perrin burst through the door without knocking, his face flushed and a thick stack of files clutched in his hands. Ms. Voss, you need to see this right away, he said urgently, spreading the documents across her desk like a map of hidden treachery. Elena leaned forward, her eyes scanning the pages filled with highlighted transactions and annotated notes. Fake vendor contracts routed payments to shell companies that Marcus controlled. Unauthorized bonuses he approved for himself. Personal expenses charged to corporate accounts. Lavish vacations, luxury watches, even payments to discreet services that hinted at deeper indiscretions. The numbers climbed relentlessly, painting a picture of systematic theft. So far, nearly $4.5 million over 6 years, Douglas explained, his voice tight with disgust. And we are not done yet. Theodore suspected this, but I do not think he grasped the full scale. Elena felt an icy fury coil in her chest, cold and unyielding. This was not just betrayal, it was predation, Marcus feeding off the company like a parasite while she had labored in the shadows to keep it alive. Turn everything over to the prosecutors, she said firmly, her voice steady despite the storm within. We cannot let this slide. But complications arose almost immediately, as if the universe conspired to test her resolve. Lydia Hale, ever the tenacious adversary, filed a formal contest to the will in court, claiming undue influence and questioning Theodore's mental state. The filing included psychiatric reports, old family correspondence, and even distant relatives as witnesses, transforming what should have been a straightforward transfer into a legal quagmire. Elena found herself summoned to a tense preliminary hearing, the courtroom a stark arena of polished wood and stern faces. Seated on the witness stand, Elena faced Lydia's lawyer, a sharp-featured man with a reputation for aggressive cross-examinations. He grilled her relentlessly on her rags-to-riches story, insinuating that her humble beginnings had fueled a manipulative climb. You came from nothing, Ms. Voss. Foster care, scraping by on scholarships. Is it not convenient that you ingratiated yourself with a dying man to seize his fortune? Elena met his gaze without flinching. her response measured and incisive. "I earned my success independently, long before marrying into the Hales community, where I worked on night shifts and received a full scholarship to a university based on merit, not connections. Theodore hired me for my expertise, documented reasonably. His safeguards, multiple evaluations, video testimony, prove his clarity. This is not about my past, it is about his choice." The judge nodded thoughtfully, and Lydia's challenge faltered under the weight of evidence. Yet the skirmish left Elena drained, a reminder that justice was rarely swift or clean. Back at headquarters, the audit continued to unravel more threads, exposing a web of deceit that extended beyond Marcus. Minor complicity from Lydia surfaced, overlooked discrepancies she had signed off on, perhaps out of familial loyalty or willful blindness. Then came the confrontation Elena had dreaded, yet anticipated. Marcus somehow slipped past building security, making it to her floor in a disheveled state that spoke of sleepless nights and mounting desperation. She heard the commotion first, his voice echoing down the hallway, demanding to see her. Stepping out of her office, she found him restrained by guards, his expensive suit wrinkled, hair uncombed, eyes wild with a mix of plea and accusation. "Elena," he shouted, struggling against the firm grips. "We need to talk. End this madness, for old time's sake." She stood unmoved in her doorway, arms crossed, as memories assaulted her. Coming home early from a business trip, the shock of finding him entangled with Brooke in their marital bed. His reaction was not remorse, but irritation at the interruption. "Why are you home early?" he had snapped, as if her presence were the offense, not his infidelity. "Marcus," she said now, her tone devoid of warmth, "you stole from families relying on this company for their livelihoods, from your father's legacy while he lay dying. The audit is uncovering it all. Face the consequences. But I am sorry, okay? For Brooke, for the credit, for everything. Just make it go away. I cannot go to prison. Do you understand? I would not survive it." Elena's expression remained impassive, though inside, a flicker of old pain stirred. "Sorry? Your apologies often come with excuses. You committed crimes. The company is pressing charges, not me personally." "We were married for 8 years, he yelled as the guards began dragging him toward the elevators. "That has to mean something." "It meant the world to me once," Elena replied softly, her voice carrying a deadly calm. "Until I walked in on you and Brooke, remember that day? Not ashamed, just annoyed I interrupted. You asked why I was home early, as if that was the problem, not the betrayal in our home." The guards hesitated, glancing between them. "Mercy is for those who show genuine remorse," she continued. "You have shown only entitlement. Security, remove him and add him to the permanent banned list." Marcus's shouts echoed down the hall as he was hauled away, but Elena closed her door firmly, the sound cutting off like a severed tie. She stood there a moment, hands trembling slightly, before sinking into her chair and forcing deep breaths. The confrontation had been inevitable, but it left her raw, a reminder of the emotional toll this battle exacted. As the audit progressed, the full extent of the web emerged. Douglas returned with updates. More shell companies, traced back to offshore accounts, and even minor involvement from Lydia in approving questionable expenses. It was enough to force her hand. Lydia, sensing the noose tightening, withdrew her will contest quietly, perhaps to avoid her own exposure. But Elena chose mercy there, focusing charges solely on Marcus, the primary architect of the fraud. Justice was tightening its grip, inexorable and impartial. Yet with each revelation, Elena's exhaustion mounted, a bone-deep weariness from carrying the company's future while excavating its poisoned past. Late nights blurred into early mornings, her desk a fortress of reports and legal briefs. Mira called often, her voice a lifeline. "You are a force, but even forces need rest. When is your vacation?" "Soon," Elena promised, though she wondered if she could truly step away. The foundation was stirring interest as women reached out with stories that mirrored her own, and whispers of Lydia's lingering resentment hinted at potential sabotage, keeping Elena on high alert. One evening, as rain pattered against her office windows, Douglas knocked again. "We have traced another million," Hidden in investments tied to Brooke. It is solid. Elena nodded, a grim satisfaction settling over her. Good. Let the prosecutors handle it now. But inside, she felt the weight pressing harder. This was not just about money or credit. It was about reclaiming her narrative, ensuring no one else suffered in silence as she had. As she left the office that night, the city lights blurred through the rain-streaked glass of her car. Somewhere, Marcus plotted his next desperate move. Lydia nursed her grudges, but Elena drove on, fortified by the knowledge that the revelations were not just exposing theft, they were illuminating her path forward, one hard-won truth at a time. Months had elapsed since Elena Voss seized control of Hale Steel, and the weight of her triumphs began to reveal hidden fissures in her resolve. She stood on the stage of a national conference hall, the spotlight hot against her skin, 500 pairs of eyes fixed upon her like spotlights in the dark. The invitation had come to speak on corporate transformation and ethical leadership, a topic she had nearly declined to address. Public speaking terrified her in ways boardroom battles did not, the vulnerability of baring her soul to strangers. But Mira had insisted, arguing that her story could ignite change for others, that hiding her victory perpetuated the invisibility she had fought to escape. So Elena had said yes, and now she faced the crowd, her navy suit a shield, her voice steady despite the racing pulse. "My name is Elena Voss," she began, gripping the podium to ground herself. "Until recently, most of you had never heard of me. That was intentional. For 8 years, I was the invisible partner in my marriage. My ideas harvested while my ex-husband basked in the applause." The audience leaned in, a hush falling over the room. Elena shared it all, meeting Marcus, mistaking his charm for respect, crafting strategies in the dead of night, only to watch him claim them at dawn. Introduced as his wife at galas, never by her achievements. "I allowed it," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly, the raw honesty hanging in the air. "That haunts me most. I diminished myself, believing brilliance and usefulness would earn me a place as an equal. He never saw me that way." She paused, the silence profound. Theodore Hale, my father-in-law, witnessed it for years. Instead of confronting his son, he hired me confidentially as a consultant, paid me fairly, and documented my contributions, though time stole his chance to complete the task. Dying, he left me everything, trusting I had earned it. Applause erupted, thunderous and affirming. Elena waited, then continued. "Marcus Hale faces embezzlement charges for millions stolen from the family firm. Theodore's initial evidence is being completed. His reputation shattered. His partner fled. People ask if I feel vindicated." She scanned the faces, seeing nods and tears. "I do not. I feel weary, angry at wasting years, yet grateful to Theodore for seeing my value when I couldn't. Vindication should not demand destruction. It should flow from recognizing work done." Elena delved into systemic issues, credit theft in marriages and workplaces, women's ideas routinely attributed to men, and the uncompensated labor of propping up others. "I am founding the Theodore Hale Foundation for Women in Leadership," she announced. A decision crystallized the night before. It will offer mentorship, funding, and legal aid to women whose contributions are often overlooked or erased. If you are appropriated, diminished, invisible, we will help you reclaim. The applause swelled to a standing ovation, women rising with tear-streaked faces. Elena felt her chest expand, a surge of purpose. This was why she spoke, not for herself, but for the chorus of silenced voices now echoing back. Afterward, women approached in droves, sharing tales that mirrored her own. A researcher whose partner had published joint work under their own name. A writer whose husband claimed credit for her novel's genesis, and a lawyer whose strategies had been co-opted by superiors. Elena collected contacts, promising follow-ups. The foundation would materialize, she vowed. Yet success, she discovered, did not mend the wounds that birthed it. That night, in her sleek apartment, Elena sat on the balcony with a glass of Merlot, gazing at the glittering skyline. She was the CEO of a thriving empire. Wealthy beyond her foster child's dreams, featured in magazines, sought after for speeches, and utterly hollow. Her phone rang. Mira, checking in as always since the will reading. "How was the speech?" Mira asked, her tone bright. "Good. Great, actually. Starting a foundation, I know, watched the stream." "You moved the room, me included." Mira paused. "So why sound so down?" Elena laughed hollowly. "Because I don't know this version of myself. I mastered being invisible, supporting and enabling others' success, while also achieving my own success in a foreign territory. That is what you are doing, working hard, uplifting others, building meaning." "It feels lonely," Elena corrected softly. 16-hour days drown out the realization that I wasted 8 years loving someone who never reciprocated my feelings. Desperate for visibility, I accepted erasure. Nearing 40, who am I beyond utility? Silence, then Mira gentled. "Take a real vacation, no conferences, no business. Rest." "I cannot, the company will survive 2 weeks." "Delegate to your team," Mira affirmed. "You won. Destroyed Marcus, saved the firm, launched a foundation. But burning out undoes it." Mira was right. Elena ran on fumes, using work to evade feelings. Where to go? Somewhere offline, no obsessing reports. Breathe. Post-call, Elena browsed travel sites under city glow. She craved quiet, choice invisibility. A Charleston cottage caught her eye. Porch rockers, blooming garden, tree-lined views. She booked 2 weeks, starting next month. Then messaged her assistant. "Clear calendar, unreachable save emergencies." The assistant replied, shocked yet pleased. "Wonderful, Miss Voss. You deserve it." Did she? Elena pondered, but need trumped deserve, perhaps synonymous. 3 weeks later, Elena arrived in Charleston, suitcase light, hope heavy for rediscovering joy in her rebuilt life. The cottage charmed as promised. Unpacking slowly, then porch-sitting with iced tea, sunset painting the sky. Tension eased, shoulders dropping. Tomorrow, parks, galleries, cuisine. Exist without a strategy, prove worth ceaselessly. Tonight, breathe. The business queen had risen, conquered, and transformed. Now, relearn being just Elena. Days melted into a gentle rhythm, mornings alone, reading novels, strolling historic districts. Beignets breakfast, shrimp grits lunch, antique browsing sans phone checks, coffee shop novel reading over reports. Strange, wonderful, occasionally terrifying as mind quieted, old thoughts surfacing, foster neglect, Marcus diminishment, self-doubt whispers. On the 4th evening, a coffee shop flyer advertised a local art exhibition at the community center, featuring Julian Reed, a sculptor who uses reclaimed materials. Elena attended on whim, seeking peace. The center was filled with families and couples. Artworks stunned, driftwood metal fusions, ancient modern organics seeming grown, not built. Before a twisted oak branch woman, arms skyward, face sun-drinking, titled Emergence. Elena's chest tightened. "She is breaking free," a voice beside said. From the ground, dark constraints. Elena turned, a tall man with dark skin, graying temples, and builder's hands, jeans, button-down. Unpretentious presence like deep roots. "It is beautiful," Elena said sincerely. "Thank you," he smiled, eyes crinkling. "I am Julian. I created her." Elena flushed. "Sorry, did not realize." "No apology. I enjoy unobserved reactions." He studied her curiously. "What do you see?" "Strength, exhaustion. Emergence demands all, but staying buried kills." Julian's face shifted, recognition dawning on it. "Exactly my intent. Most call it pretty. Not pretty, powerful. Difference." Comfortable silence followed. "Visiting or local?" Julian asked. "Visiting. Cottage rental, learning an unproductive existence. Most challenging work," he said thoughtfully. "I teach kids woodworking here. Many struggle just being with tools, sans a perfection goal. Creation sometimes needs free hands." "Do you teach adults?" Interested? Elena hesitated, then said yes. They exchanged numbers. His workshop was within walking distance of her cottage. Fair warning, chaos. Shavings, scattered tools, abandoned projects. Not polished. Good. Tired of polished. She walked back lighter, inexplicable, Julian stranger, known only for art, kind eyes, rarer than realized. The next afternoon she found his converted garage workshop, doors open to the breeze, acoustic music playing. Julian's sanded wood looked up and smiled genuinely. You came, was not sure. Why not? People pledge tries, then fear novice failure. He gestured, pick speaking wood. Elena wandered, fingers trailing oak, pine, barnwood. Choose pale maple, holdable. Julian demonstrated sanding, grain feel, and wood cooperation, patient, non-hovering, letting her experiment. The conversation flowed. His Savannah roots, wait, the story was now about Charleston? The original was Savannah, but the document had been changed to Charleston. Stick to the document, Charleston. Carpentry from his grandfather. His late wife's name mentioned casually, and grief was seamlessly woven in. Cancer took her. Thought I would die from missing. But grief is carried differently over time. 6 years? Zara, Lila 10 then, teen now, adventure. You divorced? How new? Your unproductive relearning, defined by others' expectations, too long. Elena wanted to share perhaps because Julian lacked preconceptions. Told of Marcus, drowning marriage, post-leaving invisibility, discovery. Omitted inheritance, company, focused erasure feeling. Julian listened, hands working wood. That sounds profoundly lonely, being unseen by your partner. It was, Elena whispered, tears stinging. For worth, I see you now. Tired, strong, figuring self beyond service. Brave. Elena looked away, kindness overwhelming. They worked silently, comfortably, their minds at peace amid the sawdust and music. No TV? Elena asked, recalling the mention. Laugh. Rather make than watch. Postwife, TV noise, ditched, never missed. Social media, too, happier sans. Elena envied her curated public life versus his quiet, unperformed existence. Peaceful, sometimes too, but mostly right. He stretched. Dinner? Seafood spot by water, unfancy, incredible. Elena should decline. Solitary vacation, no new entanglements. Love to, she said. Restaurant casual, locals filled. Fried shrimp, corn, talk non-work. His kid-teaching satisfaction, her foster invisibility survival. You are not invisible, Julian said firmly, taking space, entirely existing, opposite. Something cracked in Elena. Powerful months, but Julian first saw her as human. Walking back, warm night, hope flickered, not him fixing, but possibly learning love for self, not provision. See tomorrow? Julian asked at the door. Yes, Elena said, smiling back in the porch light. Afternoons in Julian's workshop transformed into Elena's private sanctuary, a haven where the world outside faded into irrelevance. The space was a delightful chaos of wood shavings curling like autumn leaves on the floor, tools scattered across workbenches in organized disarray, and half-finished projects leaning against walls like silent sentinels. Sunlight poured through the open garage doors, mingling with the earthy scent of freshly cut timber and the faint undertone of varnish. Elena found herself drawn there day after day, her hands learning the rhythm of sanding and carving under Julian's patient guidance. They worked side by side, their conversations weaving through topics of loss and renewal, each word building a bridge over the chasms of their pasts. Julian shared stories of his life in Charleston, growing up in the neighborhood's historic embrace, learning the craft from his grandfather, who had turned scraps into art during lean times. He spoke of his late wife with a quiet reverence, not dwelling on the pain, but acknowledging how it had reshaped him. Grief does not end, he said one afternoon, as he guided her hand along a piece of driftwood. It just changes form, like wood under a chisel. Elena nodded, feeling a kinship in his words. She opened up in fragments, telling him of her erased years in marriage, without delving into the scandals, name or fortune. The invisibility, the constant diminishment, it was like being a ghost in my own life. Their bond deepened with each shared moment, laced with unexpected humor that lightened the heavier topics. Elena's early attempts at carving were comically inept, producing lopsided shapes that resembled abstract failures more than intended birds or bowls. Julian laughed warmly, not mockingly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "That one looks like it had a rough night," he teased, holding up her latest effort. Elena chuckled, the sound freeing as she tossed wood chips at him playfully. For the first time in years, she felt light, unburdened by the need to prove her worth through perfection. Lila, Julian's teenage daughter, dropped by one afternoon, her arrival announced by the slam of a bicycle against the garage wall. She was a whirlwind of energy, her hair in elaborate braids that Lila had designed herself, her eyes sharp and assessing as they landed on Elena. "Dad talks about you all the time," Lila said bluntly, crossing her arms with the guarded stance of a protector. "He says you are learning woodworking, but you're doing it badly." Elena smiled, unfazed by the directness of the question. "Enthusiastically badly," she corrected, holding up her latest misshapen creation. "Want to see my less terrible attempt from yesterday?" Lila hesitated, then curiosity won out. She examined the piece, her expression softening incrementally. "It is not awful," she conceded. "Dad is a good teacher. He is patient even when you mess up big time." They spent the hour together, Lila showing Elena her own intricate drawings of fantastical cities and mythical creatures that revealed a vivid imagination. Elena asked thoughtful questions, listening intently to Lila's explanations, treating her not as an obstacle but as a person with her own world to explore. By the end, Lila was animated, sharing tips on shading and perspective. As she left, Julian watched with a soft expression. "She likes you," he said. "That is rare. She is protective." "She has every right to be," Elena replied. "Losing her mom must have been devastating." "It was, for both of us." Julian paused, his voice gentle. "I am careful too after loss. Caring again feels terrifying." "I am not asking for promises," Elena said. "Just for now. Now works for me," he replied, kissing her forehead lightly. Elena returned to the city briefly, the pull of responsibilities too strong to ignore. Back in the bustling energy of New York, she faced the first ripples of Lydia's petty sabotage. A leaked smear campaign in tabloid rags, painting Elena as a vengeful opportunist who had manipulated a dying man. The articles twisted facts, dredging up her foster care background as evidence of calculated ambition. Elena countered swiftly, issuing press releases that reframed the narrative, highlighting the foundation's mission and turning the negativity into publicity that drew more donations and applications from women in need. Through it all, Julian called nightly, his voice a soothing balm against the chaos. "You are more than these battles," he reminded her during one late conversation. Their dinners in Charleston had evolved into tender moments, shared kisses under starlit skies. Still, the distance now loomed like an unspoken shadow, a reminder that their worlds were geographically divided. Elena returned to Charleston sooner than planned, confessing her past more openly, though still vaguely skirting the full scope of her public life. "I was erased in my marriage," she told him one evening, as they sat on his porch, the air humming with cicadas. "Made to feel like my contributions did not matter." Julian met her eyes, his gaze steady. "I see you now," he said, "the real you, not the roles others imposed." A tentative romance bloomed from there, tentative yet profound, laced with humor that kept it grounded. Elena's botched carvings continued to elicit laughs, Julian teasing her gently as she improved incrementally. "Look, this one almost resembles a bird," he said one day, holding up her progress with mock solemnity. Elena swatted his arm playfully, the ease between them a stark contrast to the calculated dynamics of her past. Yet the looming trial pulled her north, a dark cloud on the horizon. Prosecutors needed her input on evidence, and the Foundation's launch demanded attention. Julian understood that their video calls bridged the gap, but Elena felt the strain of divided loyalties. In Charleston, she was just Elena, carving wood and sharing stories. In New York, she was the CEO, the avenger, the public figure. The duality exhausted her, cracks widening in her carefully constructed armor. One night, after a particularly grueling day of depositions, she confided in Julian. "Sometimes I wonder if this is real or just an escape." He contemplated her words. "Maybe it started as an escape, but it feels real to me. You do not have to choose one life over the other. We can figure it out together." His steadiness anchored her, a quiet strength that contrasted with Marcus's volatility. As the days in Charleston wound down, Elena felt a reluctance to leave. The sparks kindled in the South ignited something deeper within her, a hope for connection without conditions. Back in the city, trial preparations intensified, but the memory of those afternoons lingered, a sanctuary she carried within her. Lydia's sabotage attempts continued, minor leaks and rumors that Elena swatted away like flies, turning each into fuel for the foundation. Julian's nightly calls became lifelines, his voice reminding her of the peace she had found. As the trial date approached, Elena returned to Charleston one last time before the storm, confessing more of her identity. "I run the company now," she said vaguely. "It isn't very easy." Julian embraced her without hesitation. "I fell for the woman who saw power in my art, not the titles. We will navigate it." Their bond strengthened, kisses evolving into deeper intimacy, but the pull north was inexorable. Marcus's trial loomed, a shadow threatening to eclipse the light she had discovered in the South. Yet, for the first time, Elena felt equipped to face it, sparks of romance kindling her inner fire. Shadows from the past refused to stay buried. As Elena Voss navigated the delicate balance between her burgeoning romance in Charleston and the escalating demands of her life in New York, the prosecutors had built a solid case against Marcus, piecing together the audit findings with meticulous care. But they needed her testimony to seal it. Elena spent long hours reviewing documents, reliving the betrayals that had defined her marriage. Each page was a reminder of the theft, not just financial, but emotional. The years she had poured into Hailsteel, only to have her efforts claimed by another. A mutual friend from college days contacted her unexpectedly, her voice hesitant over the phone. "Marcus wants to meet," she said. "He is desperate, Elena. He knows he made a mistake and wants to apologize face to face." Elena paused, the request stirring a mix of revulsion and curiosity. Mira, when told, was adamant against it. "You owe him nothing," she warned during their next call. "No closure, no forgiveness. He will manipulate you again." "I know," Elena replied, "but I need to see him one last time, to confirm the man I remember is real, that I am not exaggerating the damage, and to say goodbye to who I was when I believed his lies." Against Mira's advice, Elena agreed to the meeting, choosing a neutral downtown hotel conference room for safety. She dressed in a steel gray suit, armor against vulnerability, her hair pinned back severely, every detail projecting unassailable control. Marcus was already there when she arrived, looking a shadow of his former self. His suit ill-fitting, confidence shattered, eyes hollow with the weight of impending ruin. Yet beneath the desperation lurked that familiar glint of entitlement, the belief that charm could still bend the world to his will. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice trembling slightly as he gestured to the seat across from him. "I know you did not have to." Elena sat without a word, her silence a barrier he would have to breach. Marcus launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech, his words tumbling out in a rush. He was sorry, overwhelmed by his father's expectations, lost in the pressure of the family legacy. Brooke had been a mistake, born from confusion and loneliness. He had always loved Elena deep down, regretted taking her for granted, the credit theft, all of it. But every apology came laced with justification, every admission deflected blame elsewhere. "The company was complicated," he said. "I was under tremendous stress. You have to understand my position." Elena listened impassively, waiting for the moment of proper accountability that never arrived. When he finished, she leaned forward slightly. "Do you remember the day I came home early and found you with Brooke in our bed?" Marcus flinched, his face paling. "Elena, what did you say to me?" "Not sorry, not a shame. You asked why I was home early. Like that was the transgression, not your betrayal." His mouth opened and closed, searching for words. "I was confused. I did not mean you were not confused, Marcus. You were entitled. You believed you deserved my work, your father's money, Brooks's attention, and my silence all at once." Elena stood, gathering her bag with deliberate calm. "You did not come here to apologize. You came to see if I would save you again. The answer is no." But I could go to prison, he blurted, his voice cracking with panic. Years of my life lost, do you understand that? You stole millions from a company sustaining hundreds of families. Yes, you should face that. It is called accountability. Elena walked to the door, but Marcus's voice followed, desperate and raw. You should be grateful I married you at all. You were nobody from nowhere, and I gave you everything. There it was, the honest Marcus, stripped of pretense, entitlement laid bare. Elena turned back, her expression devoid of emotion. I built the empire you inherited, Marcus. I saved it from your incompetence. Your father knew, the board knows, history will know. You were a nobody, hiding behind a name. She closed the door on his sputtering rage, the sound final like a chapter ending. In the lobby, she sat on a bench, allowing the tremors to come not from fear or sorrow, but relief. The meeting confirmed what she needed. Marcus unchanged, manipulative to the core. She was free, the illusions shattered. Back in her office, the weight lingered, but a text from Julian buoyed her. How are you holding up? His message read, simple yet profound. Just proved leaving him was my best decision, she replied. Can we talk tonight? Need your voice. Always, he responded. Their bond had deepened over the weeks, video calls stretching into the night. Julian shared updates on his projects and Lila's school adventures, while Elena confided her imposter feelings amid success. You are no imposter, he said firmly during one of our calls. You earned it all. That counts. What if work is all I am? What if that is my only identity? Then explore who else you want to be. Growth is allowed, Elena. You do not have to be perfect, just real. She wished for his presence, the steady warmth beside her, seeing her as a human being, not an icon. But doubts crept in. Was this real or just a vacation fantasy? Geography and timing complicated everything. Then Lydia resurfaced, sensing defeat in the mounting case against her brother. She approached Elena privately after a foundation event. Her demeanor shifted from hostility to reluctant humility. Theodore was right about you, she said quietly, her eyes averted. I fought the will out of loyalty, but I see now. Elena regarded her coolly. What changed? Lydia sighed, revealing family secrets in a rush, her regrets enabling Marcus's flaws, overlooking signs of his entitlement from childhood, prioritizing family image over integrity. I knew about some discrepancies, she admitted, signed off on them to protect him. I was wrong. The confession added depth to Lydia's remorse, humanizing the woman Elena had viewed as an adversary. Why tell me now? Because you deserve to know the whole picture, and perhaps to ask forgiveness, though I do not expect it. Elena considered the admission a crack in the hail armor. I appreciate the honesty, but actions have consequences for all of us. They parted on uneasy truce, Lydia donating anonymously to the foundation later, a gesture of amends. Julian's support remained steadfast via video. You are strong, but let me share the load, he said after she recounted the meeting. Their connection deepened, but Elena questioned its nature. Was it an escape from her high-stakes world, or genuine? She flew south impulsively, surprising Julian at his workshop. He looked up from his sanding, face lighting with joy. Elena? What brings you here? Need to see you. Can we talk? He sent the kids home early, leading her to a bench under a blooming magnolia. What is wrong? I have not been entirely honest about my life or who I am. Julian waited, open yet cautious. My ex was not just any man. He was Marcus Hale, heir to Hale Steel. His father left me the company. I have been his secret consultant, saving it. I am the CEO now, amid a scandal. Julian processed, then. Okay, that is it? What do you want? Intimidation? Changes nothing. I fell for the woman who saw strength in my sculpture, who carved terrible birds but persisted, who treated Lila as a person, not a barrier. Titles do not matter. I care that you trusted me with the truth. Elena teared. Not upset I withheld? Not thrilled, but understand. I just needed to be Elena, not the icon. I like her best. Relief washed over her, they embraced. So what now? Lives divided. We figure it visits, calls until sick of faces. Elena laughed through tears. Complicated, but I want this. Messy things often best, Julian said, pulling her close. The weekend solidified their path, as Elena met his friends and glimpsed his rooted life, contrasting with her high-profile one. As she flew back, lighter yet terrified, she knew she had built something real requiring trust she had long guarded. The shadows resurfaced, but with Julian, light pierced through. Elena Voss boarded the flight south with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, the hum of the engines mirroring the turbulence in her mind. She had not told Julian she was coming. The surprise felt right, a way to test the authenticity of their connection. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of trial preparations, foundation launches, and the relentless grind of running Hale Steel. But beneath it all, her thoughts kept drifting to him, to the quiet strength in his voice during their nightly calls, the way he saw her without the filters of her public persona. As the plane descended over Charleston's lush landscape, she steeled herself for the revelation she could no longer delay. She arrived at his workshop unannounced, the familiar scent of sawdust and varnish welcoming her like an old friend. Julian looked up from his workbench, sanding a piece of reclaimed oak, his expression shifting from concentration to sheer delight. "Elena?" he exclaimed, setting down his tools and crossing the space in long strides to envelop her in a warm embrace. "What are you doing here? This is the best surprise." "I needed to see you," she said, pulling back slightly to meet his eyes. "However, we need to discuss something important." He nodded, sensing the gravity in her tone, and dismissed the afternoon woodworking class early, apologizing to the kids with promises of extra time next session. They walked outside to the bench under the magnolia tree, its blossoms perfuming the air. Julian sat beside her, his hand finding hers in silent support. "What is on your mind?" Elena took a deep breath, the words she had rehearsed tumbling out. "I have not been entirely honest about my life, about who I am, and what I do." Julian waited patiently, his expression open but tinged with caution. "My ex-husband was not just someone who took credit for my work. He was Marcus Hale, heir to Hale Steel. His father left me the entire company because I had been working secretly for him, saving the business from ruin. I am the CEO now. It is all very public. There has been an enormous scandal, magazine covers, and news interviews. I started a foundation too. I am not just a woman recovering from a bad marriage. I am infamous in business circles." Julian sat back, absorbing the information, his brow furrowing slightly as he processed. "Okay," he said finally, his voice even. "Okay, that is it? What do you want me to say?" he asked, genuinely puzzled. "That I am intimidated? Does this change how I see you?" "It does not, Elena. I fell for the woman who stood before my sculpture, seeing both strength and exhaustion in it. The one who was terrible at carving birds but kept trying anyway. The one who talked to Lila like she was a whole person, not just my daughter." He squeezed her hand gently. "I do not care if you run a company or if you are famous. I care that you are here, that you chose to tell me, that you trusted me with the truth." Tears welled in Elena's eyes, a rush of relief flooding her. "Are you not upset that I didn't tell you sooner? I am not thrilled that you felt you had to hide it, but I understand why. You needed to be just Elena for a while, not the CEO, the woman in the headlines, or any other version people expect from you." His voice was gentle, reassuring. "For what it is worth, I like just Elena. She is my favorite." Elena laughed through her tears, leaning into him as he pulled her close. "I missed you so much." "Good, I missed you too." Julian kissed her forehead, holding her as the tension melted away. They spent the weekend navigating the logistics of their budding relationship, discussing visits and calls, and the challenges of distance between New York and Charleston. Julian lived a rooted life here with his workshop and Lila, while Elena's world was one of boardrooms and scandals. "It is complicated," Elena admitted as they walked along the waterfront, the sea breeze tangling her hair. "You make furniture, I run a massive company. Our worlds are so different." "Very complicated," Julian agreed, "but I do not want to lose this, whatever it is. We can make it work with visits to you, you coming here, video calls, until we are tired of seeing each other's faces." Lila joined them for art sessions, her teenage wit adding levity to the mix. "Dads are hopeless at romance," she quipped during one afternoon in the workshop, eyeing them with a mix of amusement and protectiveness. "Do not break him, he is fragile." Elena laughed, bonding with Lila over shared sketches, appreciating the girl's guarded warmth. By the weekend's end, Lila had warmed fully, even designing a small wooden pendant as a gift for Elena. Back north, the reality of her life crashed in like a wave. The trial loomed closer, lawyers poring over evidence, warning of potential smears that could tie her diverse roots to bias claims, attempting to undermine her credibility. Elena threw herself into work, but the cracks deepened. She began therapy sessions, unearthing foster traumas and the subtle abuse of Marcus's gaslighting. The raw excavations left her vulnerable, sessions ending in tears as she confronted the erosion of her self-worth. Julian held her through it via video, his presence a steady anchor. "Anger is good," he said softly after one particularly draining call. "It means you now know your worth. Let it burn clean." A light moment pierced the heaviness. Julian's attempted video cooking demo, meant to cheer her, devolved into chaos as ingredients flew and smoke billowed. They laughed until tears streamed, the absurdity a balm against the weight of the trial. Yet, preparation intensified, with lawyers drilling her on potential attacks, and the defense strategy hinting at portraying her as vindictive. Elena felt frayed, the duality of her lives pulling her taut. In Charleston she was free, here she was the warrior. Julian reminded her, "You can be both powerful in boardrooms and soft with those you trust. It does not cancel out." As the trial neared, Elena clung to that. Their bond was a trial of the heart, a trial that would determine whether love could bridge the divides. The day of the trial dawned with a relentless downpour, mirroring the storm brewing in Elena Voss's mind as she approached the courthouse steps. Media swarmed like vultures, cameras flashing, and reporters shouting questions that blended into a cacophony of intrusion. She walked with her head high, flanked by her legal team. Her charcoal suit served as a barrier against the chaos. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Observers crammed into every seat, journalists poised with notebooks, and a palpable tension hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. Marcus sat at the defense table, looking diminished, his once impeccable appearance now marred by dark circles and an ill-fitting tie, his eyes avoiding hers as she took her place in the gallery. The proceedings began with the prosecutor's methodical dismantling of Marcus, calling witnesses one by one to expose the full extent of his crimes. The former accountant detailed suspicious transactions, highlighting patterns of funds diverted to phantom vendors. Douglas Perrin, the CFO, explained how Marcus had bypassed approval protocols, approving inflated expenses that funneled money into personal accounts. Each testimony built the case like bricks in a wall, unassailable and condemning. Murmurs rippled through the room as exhibits flashed on screens. Bank statements, email trails, and forged invoices that painted a portrait of greed. Then came the pivotal moment, the playing of Theodore Hale's video testimony. The courtroom fell silent as his frail image appeared, his voice weak but resolute. "Marcus, you are my blood, but a profound disappointment. You coasted on others' labors, treated your brilliant wife like an accessory. Everything you claimed Elena achieved, she saved our legacy while you squandered it. I leave her all because she earned it, and you must learn to lose." Marcus flinched visibly, his face draining of color, as if the words were physical blows. The jury shifted, their expressions hardening with the weight of the revelation. Brooke took the stand next, her testimony a dramatic flip of allegiance. She portrayed herself as a victim, manipulated by Marcus's deceptions, her tears flowing freely as she detailed how he had used company funds for their extravagant purchases. The performance was calculated, but the jury seemed unmoved, their notes scribbled furiously. On the fourth day, Elena was called to testify. She walked to the stand with measured steps, the wood cool under her fingers as she swore the oath. The prosecutor approached, her questions precise and to the point. "Miss Voss, could you explain your relationship to Hale Steele?" "For 8 years, I served as Theodore Hale's private consultant," Elena began, her voice clear and unwavering. "I developed strategies that rescued the company from bankruptcy, oversaw supply chain overhauls, facilitated market expansions, and implemented sustainability initiatives. Marcus presented them as his own, while embezzling funds behind the scenes. The gallery murmured, but Elena continued, detailing the theft with clinical precision. Fake contracts, shell entities, personal indulgences, and $4.5 million siphoned off, endangering jobs and the company's future. The defense attorney rose for cross-examination, a shrewd woman with a reputation for twisting narratives. Ms. Voss, is this not revenge? A bitter ex-wife seeking to destroy her former husband. Elena met her gaze steadily. This is accountability. He stole not just from me, but from employees whose families depend on Hale Steel. I protect the company as CEO. The attorney pressed, implying manipulation of Theodore, exaggeration of Marcus's incompetence, even hinting at Elena's background as a motive for greed. But Elena parried each thrust with facts, referencing documented sessions, timestamps, and Theodore's evaluations. She exposed Lydia's minor ties and signed approvals on questionable deals without malice, focusing on the truth over vendetta. The attorney shifted tactics. Ms. Voss, do you enjoy seeing your ex on trial? Elena paused, looking at Marcus for a long moment. I enjoy none of this reliving my marriage publicly, knowing he chose theft over integrity, being questioned on deserving my own work. But yes, he should face consequences. That is justice, not joy. The courtroom buzzed with approval as the judge called for order. Elena stepped down, lighter, the truth voiced and believed. The trial stretched on for another week, with more evidence piling up like an avalanche, as Marcus's lawyers flailed with desperate defenses. During a break, Elena spotted Brooke outside, surrounded by the media, spinning her tale of victimhood to garner sympathy. Elena almost smiled at the opportunism, but pity tempered it. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning its verdict. Elena sat in the back, heart pounding as the foreman rose. Guilty on all counts. The room erupted. Marcus' face was ashen, that of a broken man. Miriam wept quietly, her hand over her mouth. Brooke glanced around, as if seeking cameras for her reaction. Bailiffs cuffed Marcus, leading him away, his pleas falling on deaf ears. Sentencing took place 2 weeks later, but Elena chose not to attend the proceedings. Instead, she was in Charleston, wrapped in Julian's arms on his porch, the verdict news arriving via text. 8 years in federal prison, full restitution, and barred from corporate roles for the rest of my life. How do you feel? Julian asked, his voice soft in the evening hush. Empty, Elena admitted. Thought it would bring more, but I'm mostly tired. Julian pulled her closer. Revenge does not heal, it closes chapters. Healing is separate work. She leaned into him, inhaling his familiar scent of wood and warmth. I do not know healing from 8 years of invisibility. Start by being visible to yourself, acknowledging your survival, letting loved ones see the hidden parts, and accepting forward movement without forgetting the past. That night, Elena scheduled regular therapy, long postponed under the guise of busyness, but honestly due to fear of unearthed pain. Sessions proved brutal, delving into foster neglect, learning invisibility as a shield, and marrying Marcus for illusory validation. Why stay so long? The therapist probed. What feared? What is believed deserved? Answers pained. Staying admitted to waste years, terrified, fearing aloneness. Nothing without him, deserved scraps. Taught to ask for more greedily. You were human, the therapist said firmly. Humans deserve to be seen, valued, and respected at all times. Elena cried through it, Julian holding her afterward as she shook, so angry at him, myself, silent watchers. Anger is good. It means you deserve better. Feel it. Let it burn. Release. Healing non-linearly, some days empowered, others apologizing needlessly, second-guessing instincts, bracing for upcoming criticism. You need not explain, Julian said, gently catching over-explanations. Allowed want things. Revolutionary, terrifying, and loved unconditionally. Elena split time between cities, running Hale Steel remotely when possible, Charleston weeks breathing freely. The company thrived under her, with diverse hires promoted and humor-infusing meetings, easing tensions. Julian proposed in the workshop, amidst shavings and tools, presenting a carved ebony ring. Remember that marriage is complicated, after Marcus. Not asking a traditional wife to be a partner, equal, or person. Build a life that is both visible and mattering, whole. Tears flowed. Yes, marry you. Spend life as seen by you. Their intimate ceremony took place in the backyard of the workshop, surrounded by close friends and family. Mira's witty toast to the survival of friendship and radical love. Lila's decorations, wooden sculptures, flowers, and magical items. Miriam attended, hugging Elena. Finally, see the child marry the deserving. Elena wore a flowing cream dress, hair free, feeling beautiful from within. Vows. Elena promised visibility, burden sharing, trust, love sans disappearance. Julian pledged to see always light, dark, strength, and vulnerability. Kiss sealed, certainty washed over the contrasting union of Marcus. Afterward, Elena reflected on a foster girl's invisible survival, a woman's belief that validation mattered, and Theodore's insight into seeing worth in gifting a foundation. With Julian, I learned to see not vulnerability, but strength, including softness, love, steadiness, and not being conditional. Under the stars, Julian asked regretfully, leaving Marcus, millions of lost years, but needed to understand what I deserved, had an invisible value seen, or survived terrible, now live beautifully. Need not lessen, just happened. Tired is defined by Marcus's damage. Let's determine the company, foundation, and us now. Survivor thriving, not victim. You are already, Julian said. Always were. Silence is comfortable, stars wheeling. Peace settled, not struggle absence, purpose presence. Not pain forgetting, better building. Elena once erased, fought back, and built a foundation, a meaningful life, and an empire, claiming the courage earned through work and documentation. Most excellent power, not success, proving wrong by being unapologetically herself. Let's see the broken pieces stay. Heart trials taught love, not what was chosen. Finally, Elena meant to be whole, free. 9. The courtroom crucible. The trial dawned under a leaden sky, rain lashing the courthouse windows as Elena Voss arrived amid a frenzy of media. Reporters surged forward, microphones thrusting out like weapons, as questions barraged her about the scandal that had gripped the business world. She navigated the swarm with her legal team, her navy suit sodden, but her posture unyielding, as she stepped into the building's marble halls, where the air hummed with anticipation. The courtroom overflowed, with spectators filling the benches, journalists poised with their laptops, and the atmosphere thick with the scent of damp wool and polished oak. Marcus sat at the defense table, a diminished figure in a rumpled suit, his eyes darting nervously, avoiding her gaze as she took her seat in the gallery. Proceedings commenced with the prosecutor's relentless assault, summoning witnesses to expose Marcus's deceit layer by layer. The former accountant took the stand first, detailing anomalous transactions and funds diverted through fictitious vendors to accounts that Marcus controlled. Charts projected on screens illustrated the flow, red arrows tracing millions vanishing into personal coffers. Douglas Perrin followed, his testimony measured yet damning, as he explained how Marcus circumvented safeguards, approving exorbitant expenses that masked luxury purchases and offshore transfers. Each revelation built the case inexorably, the jury leaning forward, notebooks filling with notes. The climax came with Theodore Hale's video testament, the room falling into hushed reverence as his image flickered to life. His voice, frail from illness but sharp with conviction, filled the space. Marcus, you are my son, yet my greatest regret. You idled while others toiled, claimed glories not yours, demeaned a woman of brilliance as mere ornament. All you boast, Elena forged every strategy, every salvage from your mismanagement. She merits the legacy. You must taste actual loss. Marcus recoiled as if slapped, his face ashen, whispers rippling through the audience. The jury exchanged glances, the weight of the words sinking in like anchors. Brooke testified next, her appearance a spectacle of calculated drama. She wept theatrically, claiming manipulation by Marcus, detailing how he lavished company funds on their affairs, positioning herself as another casualty. Her performance aimed for sympathy, but the jury's expressions remained skeptical, the prosecution's cross-examination exposing inconsistencies in her timeline. On day 4, Elena was summoned to the stand, her steps echoing in the silent room as she swore the oath. The prosecutor approached, questions honed like blades. "Miss Voss, could you please elaborate on your ties to Hale Steele?" "For 8 years I consulted privately for Theodore Hale," Elena stated, her voice resonant and composed. "I architected the revival supply restructures, market conquests, and ethical shifts, all while Marcus appropriated credit and embezzled vast sums." The gallery stirred, but she pressed on, cataloging the fraud with precision. Shell entities siphoned funds, fabricated contracts, and concealed extravagances, resulting in a $4.5 million loss that jeopardized both the firm's livelihoods and its integrity. The defense attorney advanced for cross, her demeanor predatory. "Miss Voss, is this a vendetta? A scorned spouse demolishing her ex?" Elena locked eyes, unflinching. "Not vendetta, accountability. He pilfered from families sustained by Hale Steele, from his father's bequest." The attorney escalated, alleging that Elena had manipulated Theodore, inflated Marcus's failings, and insinuated that her origins fueled avarice. Elena countered each salvo with evidence, documented consultations, chronological proofs, and psychiatric affirmations of Theodore's lucidity. She unveiled Lydia's peripheral involvement in unauthorized, dubious outlays sans spite, emphasizing veracity over retribution. The attorney pivoted. "Ms. Voss, relish witnessing your ex-husband's trial?" Elena regarded Marcus briefly before responding. "I relish none revisiting my union publicly, acknowledging his integrity forfeiture, defending my labor's merit. Yet he merits repercussions, that is, equity, not delight." The courtroom murmured approbation, the judge demanding order. Elena descended the stand, a burden lifted, verity proclaimed and embraced. The trial extended another week with evidence accumulating like a tidal wave, as Marcus's counsel floundered with feeble rebuttals. In a recess, Elena observed Brooke, encircled by the press outdoors, narrating her ordeal to garner empathy, reframing herself as a casualty. Elena felt fleeting amusement at the opportunism, tempered by compassion for the woman's entanglement. Jury deliberation spanned scant hours. Elena occupied the rear row, pulse racing as the foreman stood. Guilty across all charges, uproar ensued, Marcus pallid, stunned, a fractured shell. Miriam sobbed softly, hand-muffling grief. Brooke surveyed, seemingly seeking documentation of her response. Bailiffs restrained Marcus, his entreaties futile, as he was led away. Sentencing was held fortnightly, with Elena opting for absence. Instead, she resided in Charleston, entwined with Julian on his veranda. Verdict via notification, 8 years federally, complete recompense, corporate prohibition, eternal. "How feel?" Julian inquired, tone tender in twilight. "Vacant," Elena conceded, anticipated more, yet chiefly fatigued. Julian drew her nearer. Retribution seals portals, mending distinct labor. She nestled, absorbing his essence. Unfamiliar mending from 8 years obscured. Commence self-visibility, conceding endurance, permitting intimates to view concealed facets. Embrace progression sans oblivion. That eve, Elena initiated routine therapy, deferred pretextually by occupation, veritably by dread of exhumed anguish. Encounters are harrowing and probing, fostering disregard and invisibility as a safeguard, while wetting Marcus for spurious affirmation. "Why linger?" the therapist queried. "What dreaded? What is deemed merited?" Replies anguished lingered, confessing squandered epochs, daunting, dreaded solitude, void absent him. Merited fragments, instructed lifespan soliciting additional avaricious. You human, the therapist affirmed resolutely, humans merit to be perceived, esteemed, and honored invariably. Elena wept throughout, Julian cradling her as she quivered. It immensely irritates him, as well as himself and the mute observers. Ire is beneficial, signifies recognition of merit. Sense it, permits scorch, liberate. Mending, erratic days, certain, empowered, and alternate. Contrite and gratuitously, doubting acumen, anticipating absent censure. No necessity to rationalize, Julian murmured tenderly, detecting over-elucidations. Permitted desire matters. Revelatory, alarming, adored unqualifiedly. Elena bifurcated existence intercities, administering hail steel distantly feasible. Charleston spans respiring liberally. Firm flourished beneath her, variegated recruits elevated, mirth permeating assemblies, alleviating strains. Julian proffered in the atelier, amid curls and implements, tendering a sculpted ebony circlet. Cognize matrimony intricate post-Marcus, soliciting not a conventional consort, but a comrade, peer, or individual. Construct existence is both manifest, significant, and integral. Lacrimation cascaded. Affirmative, espouse you, expend existence beheld by you. Their secluded right in the atelier's rear, proximate to their comrades' kin. Miras's droll salute, camaraderie, perseverance, and audacious affection. Lilas adornments, ligneous effigies, blooms enchanting. Miriam partook, clasping Elena. Ultimately, witness offspring deserve. Elena donned billowing ivory garb, tresses liberated, sensing pulchritudinous inwardly. Pledges Elena swore manifestness, onus division, credence affection devoid of vanishment. Julian swore behold perpetually, luminance obscurity, fortitude fragility. Osculation cemented, assurance inundated, antithetical Marcus alliance. Post, Elena contemplated a foster lass concealed, enduring, female, crediting validation, signifying import, Theodore discerning merit, bestowing bedrock. With Julian discerned beheld not susceptibility, fortitude encompassed tenderness, affection constant, not provisional. Beneath the constellations, Julian queried the compunctions that departed Marcus. Myriad concerning forfeited anims, yet requisite comprehend merited. Necessitated obscured esteem beheld, or endured atrocious, presently subsist exquisite, necessitate not precept merely occurred, fatigue delineated by Marcus impairment, crave delineated presently firm, endowment, us survivor prospering, not a casualty. You presently that female Julian uttered, perpetually were, quietude congenial, constellations revolving, tranquility lodged, not strife, dearth intent existence. Not agony oblivion, superior erecting. Elena erst obscured, contended retort, toil, attestation, valor assert, merited and erected dominion, endowment, consequential existence. Supreme might not accomplish reprisal, disproving the erroneous notion of being unrepentant, and permitting perceived fractured fragments to abide, notwithstanding. Cardiac ordeals instructed affection, nay, elected instructed was. Ultimately, post entirely, Elena will be integral and liberated. Elena Voss woke in Julian's house on a serene Sunday morning, sunlight filtering through the curtains, and for the first time in years she realized she was genuinely happy. It was not the happiness born of power or vengeance, but a quiet contentment from feeling safe and truly seen. Julian lay beside her, still asleep, his breathing steady and reassuring. She watched him, tracing the lines of his face with her eyes, memorizing the peace he brought into her life. They had been together nearly a year, bridging the distance between New York and Charleston, with visits, calls, and a shared determination to make it work. Elena had sold the Hale mansion, donating most of its contents to charity, choosing instead to start fresh in spaces that felt earned and authentic. Therapy had become a cornerstone of her healing, sessions delving deep into the scars left by her past. Elena confronted the self-doubt that had lingered like a shadow, the belief that her worth was tied to her utility. The therapist guided her through the foster care years, the constant adaptation to survive, and the marriage where love had been conditional on her invisibility. Why did you stay? The questions probed, unearthing painful truths. Fear of being alone, of starting over with nothing, of confirming the whispers that she was difficult to love. But with each session, Elena emerged stronger, shedding layers of internalized blame. Anger surfaced, raw and cathartic, directed at Marcus for his manipulations, at herself for enduring them, at the silent enablers who had watched her diminish. Julian supported her through the process, holding her after tear-filled nights, his presence a steady anchor. "You survived," he reminded her gently. "Now you get to thrive." His words echoed in her mind as she integrated the lessons, learning to voice her needs without apology and to accept love without suspicion. Post-trial, Lydia Hale reached out unexpectedly, her demeanor softened by the verdict's finality. They met for coffee in a neutral cafe, Lydia fidgeting with her cup as she spoke. "I donated to your foundation anonymously," she said. "It is the least I can do after everything." Elena raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Why now?" Lydia sighed, sharing her own overlooked ambitions, dreams of running the company, which had been stifled by family expectations that favored Marcus. "I enabled him," she admitted. "Ignored the signs, prioritized the Hale name over what was right. Seeing you fight back showed me what I could have been." The confession added layers to their dynamic, transforming Lydia from foe to a complex figure haunted by regrets. They parted with a tentative understanding, Lydia promising ongoing support for the foundation. Elena split her time between cities, spending weeks in Charleston, where she could recharge, and returning to New York for hands-on leadership at Hale Steel. The company flourished under her guidance, with initiatives promoting diverse hiring practices that brought fresh perspectives and innovation. She infused humor into board meetings, lightening the atmosphere with self-deprecating jokes about her early days, fostering a culture of collaboration over competition. The foundation expanded, aiding women globally with mentorship programs tailored to varied backgrounds. Its impact measured in stories of reclaimed lives. Marcus's prison letters arrived sporadically, a mix of pleas for forgiveness and accusations. Elena ignored them, but Miriam visited him, laying the groundwork for a tentative path to reform that Elena observed from afar without getting involved. Julian's art exhibit showcased pieces inspired by Elena, featuring abstract forms that captured emergence and resilience. Lila pursued art school, her talent blooming under Elena's encouragement. A company crisis tested her as a supply chain sabotage traced to old rivals and disrupted operations. Elena rallied her team, resolving issues with ingenuity and Julian's counsel during late-night calls. His calm perspective grounded her decisions. Humor lightened their days. Elena's carving mishaps became family lore, retold with laughter at dinners. She felt whole, celebrating her diverse heritage through foundation programs that empowered women from similar backgrounds. One evening in the workshop, Julian proposed amid the scent of fresh wood and creativity. He presented a ring of carved ebony, profound yet straightforward, its design echoing the strength he saw in her. "I know marriage carries weight after what you endured," he said, his voice steady, hands slightly trembling. "I am not asking you to be a traditional wife. I am asking you to be my partner, my equal, my person. To build a life where we both are seen, both matter, both get to be whole. Will you marry me, Elena Voss? Will you let me spend my life seeing you, really seeing you, every day?" Tears brimmed in her eyes, joy overwhelming. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, I will marry you." They planned an intimate ceremony in the workshop backyard, surrounded by close friends and family. The space transformed under Lilas's designs, wooden sculptures intertwined with flowers, creating a magical enclave. Mira gave a witty toast to friendship, survival, and the radical act of letting yourself be loved fully. Miriam attended, her presence a bridge to the past, blessing the union with quiet tears. "You have given me hope," she told Elena, "for healing in our family." Elena wore a cream dress that flowed freely, her hair natural and unbound, feeling beautiful from the authenticity of the moment. Their vows were heartfelt. Elena promised to remain visible, to share burdens, to trust in love without fear of disappearance. Julian vowed to see her in every light and shadow, to honor both her strength and vulnerability. As they kissed, sealing the promises, certainty washed over Elena, a profound contrast to the uncertainty of her first marriage. This was built on mutual respect, not extraction. After the ceremony, as guests mingled, Elena stood apart for a moment, reflecting on her journey. The foster child who learned to vanish for safety. The young woman who married for security, only to find erasure. Theodore, who saw her worth and gifted her the tools to claim it. And now Julian, who taught her that love could be a partnership of equals, where being seen was a gift, not a transaction. Under the starlit sky, Julian joined her later. "No regrets?" he asked softly. "About the 8 years lost? 1,000,000, but they were necessary to understand what I deserve. To value being seen after invisibility. Or maybe you just survived something terrible, and now you live something beautiful," he said. "It doesn't have to be a formal lesson. It can simply be what happened." Elena loved him for that, for not requiring her pain to have purpose, for letting it exist as it was. "I am tired of being defined by what Marcus did to me," she said. "I want to be determined by what I am building now. The company, the foundation, us, the woman who survived and then thrived." "You are already that woman," Julian replied. "You have been all along." They sat in comfortable silence, the night wrapping around them like a blanket. Peace settled in her chest, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose. Elena had mended her fractures, not by erasing them, but by integrating them into a stronger whole. The horizon stretched endlessly, her story a beacon for the unseen. Years had passed since the trial that sealed Marcus Hale's fate, and Elena Voss had woven the threads of her life into a tapestry of purpose and fulfillment. The Theodore Hale Foundation had expanded beyond national borders, reaching women across continents with programs tailored to diverse backgrounds. From entrepreneurial grants in developing regions to legal aid for those facing workplace erasure in corporate hubs. Elena traveled often, speaking at international forums where her story resonated, inspiring initiatives that empowered thousands. She had hired a multicultural team to ensure the foundation's work reflected the varied experiences of those it served, celebrating her own diverse heritage through scholarships for foster youth and mentorship for first-generation professionals. One unexpected twist came in the form of letters from Marcus, arriving sporadically from his prison cell. Penned in shaky handwriting, they begged for forgiveness, alternating between remorseful pleas and thinly veiled accusations of her role in his downfall. Elena read the first few, feeling a detached curiosity, but soon set them aside unopened. They stirred no pity, only a quiet affirmation that some bridges were best left burned. Miriam, however, began visiting him regularly, her maternal instincts driving her to foster what tentative reform she could. She shared updates with Elena during occasional lunches, describing Marcus's gradual shifts in attending prison classes, expressing regret in therapy sessions. "It gives me hope," Miriam said once, her eyes misty, "not for absolution, but for growth." Elena listened without judgment, recognizing the complexity of familial bonds. She did not forgive Marcus, but she no longer carried the anger as a burden. It had burned clean, leaving space for her own growth. Meanwhile, Julian's art career flourished, his latest exhibit drawing crowds to a Charleston gallery. The centerpiece collection was inspired by Elena's abstract sculptures, which featured twisted wood and metal, evoking themes of emergence and resilience. Each piece is a tribute to her journey from shadows to light. Critics praised the work's emotional depth, and Julian dedicated the show to her, whispering during the opening, "You are my muse in every sense." Lila, now a young adult, pursued art school with fervor, her portfolio bursting with innovative designs that blended digital and traditional media. Elena mentored her closely, offering advice on navigating creative industries while balancing personal life. Their relationship had blossomed into a deep bond, Lila often seeking Elena's perspective on challenges, from portfolio reviews to handling rejection. "You taught me to see my worth," Lila said during one late-night session in the workshop. "Dad is lucky to have you, and so am I." A sudden company crisis tested Elena's leadership, pulling her back to New York amid a supply chain sabotage that threatened Hale Steel's operations. Shipments were delayed, materials were tampered with, and the disruptions were traced to old rivals, bitter over lost contracts during her restructuring. The boardroom grew tense as reports flooded in, projections showing potential losses of millions if the issue were left unresolved. Elena rallied her team, drawing on the diverse hires she had championed, as engineers from varied backgrounds brainstormed solutions and analysts uncovered digital footprints leading to the culprits. Nights blurred into strategy sessions, Elena pacing her office with coffee in hand, piecing together clues. Julian provided steady counsel via video calls, his calm voice cutting through her stress. "Break it down like a sculpture," he suggested. "What is the core problem? Remove the excess." Inspired, she delegated tasks, empowering her staff to innovate, from rerouting suppliers to implementing blockchain tracking for transparency. The sabotage was exposed, the perpetrators faced legal action, and the crisis was averted with minimal damage. The resolution not only stabilized the company, but also boosted morale, with employees praising Elena's trust in their abilities. "We felt seen," one team member said in a feedback session. "Not just cogs, but contributors." Humor lightened the heavier moments, becoming a staple in their blended family life. Elena's infamous carving mishaps evolved into cherished lore, retold at gatherings with exaggerated flair. "Remember the bird that looked drunk?" Julian would tease, prompting laughter as Lila mimicked the lopsided creation. These light-hearted stories wove joy into their days, balancing the intensity of Elena's professional world. Elena felt whole in ways she once thought impossible. Her diverse heritage was no longer a footnote, but a celebrated part of her identity. The foundation launched programs honoring her, such as workshops for women of color in STEM, drawing on her foster experiences to advocate for underrepresented voices. She spoke openly in interviews about her roots, turning what Marcus had once used against her into a source of strength. Miriam published a memoir that year, revealing Theodore Hale's complete vision and crediting Elena as the faithful steward of his legacy. The book detailed family dynamics, Theodore's growing disillusionment with Marcus, and his quiet admiration for Elena's integrity. It became a bestseller, sparking discussions on inheritance and merit, with proceeds donated to the foundation. Elena read it with mixed emotions, finding closure in the acknowledgement of her role. A new chapter unfolded as Elena mentored Lila more formally, guiding her through the art school application process and securing internships. Their sessions blended creativity with life lessons, Elena sharing stories of resilience that inspired Lila's work. "You have a gift for seeing the unseen," Elena told her once, echoing words Theodore had said to her. Julian and Elena's marriage thrived on mutual support, their lives intertwining seamlessly despite the distance between them. He visited New York for gallery shows, experiencing her world of high-stakes meetings and galas, while she escaped to Charleston for quiet weekends of woodworking and family dinners. The balance worked, each appreciating the other's domain without resentment. As years progressed, echoes of the legacy reverberated in unexpected ways. Marcus, nearing parole, expressed interest in reform programs, influenced by Miriam's visits. Elena remained detached, focusing on her path, but noted the ripple effects of accountability. The company innovated sustainably under her, pioneering eco-friendly steel production that set industry standards. In quiet moments, Elena reflected on the fractures that had mended, not seamlessly, but stronger at the breaks. The girl from foster care, the wife made invisible, the woman who claimed her empire.